Animal Kingdom.
Hi everyone, this is Hester. For your safety, please stay seated with your seatbelt fastened nice and tight while you ride. Be sure to watch your children, and please keep your hands, arms, feet, and legs inside your dinosaur.
This is Seeker. Listen up. We've got to get in, grab the iguanodon, and get out before that asteroid hits. Let's roll!
So, from all of us here to all of you there, thanks for coming and have a wonderful day out there in the animal kingdom. Ladies and gentlemen, direct from a record-breaking 2 million years at the bottom of the evolutionary ladder, let's hear it for...
WDW Radio, your information station.
Hello, my friend, and welcome to WDW Radio, your home for all things Disney parks, experiences, cruises, movies, and more around the world. I am Lou Mongello, and this is show number 817. And since 2004, we've been sharing the magic together, from the podcast to live shows every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on Facebook and YouTube, to blogs, events, and more. Whether you've been with me and the community for 20 years, or you're tuning in for the very first time, you are part of this incredible Disney family, and everything you need is over at WDWRadio.com. And Disney's Animal Kingdom has a soundtrack unlike any other park, and I think it's one that immerses us in nature, culture, and adventure, from the peaceful Oasis entrance music to the high-energy beats of Harambe, the ethereal sounds of Pandora, and even some of those kitschy rock vibes of the almost soon-to-be now extinct DinoLand. Every note plays a role in the park's storytelling, and this week I'm going to take you on an audio journey through Disney's Animal Kingdom, exploring how its music enhances the experience, the live performances that bring it to life, and even a look ahead at what we might hear in the upcoming Tropical Americas expansion. Then be sure to stay tuned for a Disney Trivia Question of the Week for your chance to win a Disney Prize package. Plus, be sure to sign up for my free weekly email newsletter to stay connected and not miss a thing. And when you do, I'll send you a free copy of my 102 Things to Do at Least Once in Walt Disney World book. You can sign up for free over at WDWRadio.com. Please connect with me on social. I am at Lou Mongello on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And if you are looking for a keynote speaker for your event, conference, or business and want to apply lessons from the Disney parks to your organization, or if you are a creator or solopreneur and want to turn your passion into your profession, please head on over to LouMongello.com. And if you like what you hear, and I hope that you do, please share the show and tell a friend. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode of the WDW Radio Show.
Prepare yourself for an adventure like no other. Disney's Animal Kingdom.
Disney's Animal Kingdom has its own unique story to tell, with a soundtrack that I think connects us to nature and adventure and the cultures that are represented throughout the park. From the peaceful entrance music of the Oasis to the rhythms of Harambe and the otherworldly tones of Pandora, I think every note that we hear, or sometimes don't hear in the background, plays a role in immersing us in the magic. And this week, we're going to continue on our journey through Walt Disney World, or Walt Disney World's music, by diving into the unique and sometimes I think captivating sounds of Disney's Animal Kingdom, having visited the other parks on show 601 and 602 with the Magic Kingdom, 609 and 610 with Future World and Epcot World Showcase we did on 626 and 627, and Disney's Hollywood Studios at 704 and 705. I'm seeing a pattern developing that the shows go long, and I have to break them up into two. We'll see if that happens here, because we're going to explore the history and the philosophy behind the music of Disney's Animal Kingdom. And I think in some cases, some of the specific compositions that define each of the areas and what makes I think especially here, the music of Animal Kingdom, such an integral part of the storytelling. Plus, I think we'll also maybe take a look at the future of the park's music, including the possibilities with the upcoming Tropical Americas expansion. So joining me once again are two friends who will trek through the musical savannah of Disney's Animal Kingdom with me. First, ladies first, Lisa Donato-Glassner from the Castle Run and ThousandCircles.com. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me back. I can't imagine the music of Animal Kingdom will take very long.
I do have a couple of favorite songs here, though. And Zach Brown, not from the band, but from the Zach Brown Show. Welcome back, buddy.
Thank you. So happy to be here. I'm ready to have a wild time.
Let's see how many of the corny puns. Zach spends most of his time in DinoLand U.S.A., so I think a lot of that's going to come out in his references to music. But, I really do think that Disney's Animal Kingdom is different and unique from the other parks. And I think music is such a big part of that. And if you're listening, you might say, well, why? I think, you go to the other parks and there are specific songs you can identify that you know and love and remember from Magic Kingdom. And, we won't even get into some of the songs that we all know and love from Epcot and Future World. And I think Disney's Hollywood Studios has that familiar music from the movies, but I think the music here is different because it feels almost more organic and natural. I think in a lot of respects, other than a few exceptions, mostly acoustic instruments, say for maybe Pandora and some of the songs we'll hear in Zach's favorite land. But very quickly, Lisa and then Zach, what do you think, just sort of from a 30,000 foot view, what do you think sets the music of this park apart from the other parks we've explored on the show so far?
So I think, Disney does musical transitions better than no one else, whether you're walking from the Grand Floridian to the Polynesian or from the UK across the bridge to France or from Tomorrowland to Fantasyland. But what they do in Animal Kingdom in sort of weaving this seamless tapestry together of original compositions and, music that is, from the countries that's being represented and these sort of, acoustic versions of Disney IP music. And then on top of all of that, weaving in the nature sounds, and doing it so seamlessly as you move from one area of the park to the next. I think it jumps out at you more in Pandora, maybe because even the nature sounds are a bit alien there. But I think the idea of the music of Animal Kingdom is, there's a lot to talk about, but the point of it is almost not to notice it. It's just meant to be kind of woven into the background and to be just a part of the overall storytelling of each land. So to me, that's like the challenge of it, but that's also what makes it so amazing.
Yeah, I think Lisa just said it perfectly, that it feels like it belongs there. In the other parks, it feels like the soundtrack that's pumped in for that area. But in Animal Kingdom, it just feels so natural, like it's coming from that land. Like it's all natural instruments, like, wooden flutes and bongos and things like that. So it just feels that it belongs in that space and kind of calls you from one area to the next. It's really cool how they do that.
Yeah, I think the park has always sort of emphasized that connection. I think there's always been that connection between sort of the musical elements and the park's overall theme of nature and adventure and the cultural representation. And I think here, in a different way than the other parks, it plays a very important role in enhancing sort of that immersive aspect of the park. And I think even going back to Joe Rohde, obviously the creative force behind Animal Kingdom, who wanted to make sure that this park was not, it was, not a zoo, and HTZU. It was not a zoo. And it had to make sure it reflected the culture that it was representing. And I think music from the beginning played an important role in that vision in order to not just capture, but I think enhance the authenticity and the immersion, as well as, I think especially when we talk about some of the lands too, the cultural accuracy and the environmental storytelling had to sort of be spot on. And I think sound plays a really important part of that. I think we consume these parks in all five senses in 360 degrees. And sometimes we don't think about the music because it is just sort of playing in the background. Sometimes, in certain places, very cacophonous areas. But I think here, the music is sometimes even more prevalent. And I think even more important, I think again, too, because it goes a lot to that required sense of authenticity it wasn't just Joe Rohde needing to see and feel, but I think Disney as a whole, and I think we as guests had to ensure that was going to be that way as well. So let's do this. Let's sort of take a virtual audio tour throughout each of the lands, and we'll talk about from a top-down view and then as granular as you want or feel the need to get about some of the specific music that is there. And I think it's interesting because when you approach Disney's Animal Kingdom I'm thinking about approaching Animal Kingdom in August and that hot as the surface of the sun pavement parking lot, and you start to sort of make your way in. I think it's interesting because a lot of the music that you'll hear in the background are rearrangements of familiar tunes from Disney attractions that in some cases inspired some of the shows and attractions. So you'll hear songs from Lion King, you'll hear songs from Tarzan and Jungle Book and The Lion Sleeps Tonight, as well as some other music as well. So I think it welcomes you in with songs and feelings that you're familiar with before it transitions you into the Oasis and Discovery Island, and very much sort of flips the switch, I think, from a musical perspective.
Yeah, I think they ease you in. It's you would almost have to go to the park specifically for the purpose of researching the show to pinpoint where that transition happens. I couldn't have told you before because like you said, as you're walking through the parking lot and approaching the park, you're sort of still in that sort of Disney vibe, and they kind of very smoothly transition you into still the feel, of course, of a Disney park, but, something that it's much more culturally immersive than you would see anywhere else.
Yeah,
as you make your way in.
And it's bouncy. It's fun. It's just full of excitement. I think it really has a neat way of subliminally getting you excited for your day. It has a sense of adventure. It has a sense of excitement, like, ooh, something's going to happen once we go through these, proverbial turnstiles. I mean, now the tap points, but you go through, and then the shift that happens once you step just into the Oasis. So I don't know. I want to jump ahead if we're getting into that space, but.
Well, no, I think look, even like the other parks, right? When you come into Magic Kingdom, and to your point, Lisa, these transitions are not just visually invisible, they're visible, but there aren't sort of specific barriers between one or the other. You walk, under the train station, or you walk into Epcot. When you step foot onto Main Street USA, it's very light. It's very upbeat, that ragtime music. When you walk into Epcot, it is this more modern, optimistic, futuristic, positive. So it does help set the mood. And I think for Disney's Animal Kingdom, that's exactly what I think that overall, that's the whole point of the Oasis and Discovery Island, is setting the mood for Disney's Animal Kingdom. And I think what it does instantaneously, almost, not just by what you see, but by what you hear, it creates this calming atmosphere. I think there's a sense of calm as soon as you walk in, as long as you're not trying to make the dash over to Flight of Passage. And I think that transitions you into that serene, immersive environment. I think the music is very ethereal. It's very tranquil. And if you listen to, I tried to sort of pay attention to even the instruments that are used in the different areas. So there's flutes and very light percussion. It's just sort of natural soundscapes that I think create that sense of peacefulness and a bit of anticipation. And like I said, I think the idea of going from the Disney music to this soothing soundtrack, which I think combined with the scenery and the lush greenery sort of sets it apart from the higher energy entrances that you have in all of the other parks.
I agree. When you step into that space, it's really beautiful how the sounds of nature, there's waterfalls, there's birds. They all kind of mix with, like you're saying, the light percussion of like marimbas. And it's all just very natural feeling. And it's as relaxing as you let it be. As long as you're not making the rush to get to your first attraction, to just wander through and take those little side paths. It really just sets your overall kind of your BPMs as you're stepping into it. Just kind of is this really nice, step into your day if you let it. And I think it's one of the most beautiful spaces in all of Walt Disney World when you're walking through the Oasis. And I think we all had that CD with the music in that area that is just so relaxing. And every so often different tracks will kind of pop out that I go, ooh, I remember listening to that on planning trips and, working out in the yard and wishing that I was at Animal Kingdom. So they've done
right. You can't identify. You don't know what they're called, but you know the familiar sounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100%. Like your heart rate just lowers a few beats, as you're walking in the gates. And like you said, like again, in researching this show, I would bring up some background music loops or, other streams that you can do online, and you just feel that same feeling come over you. And it's like the nostalgia of those certain areas of the park. The subliminal connection with amping down a little bit is there no matter where you are.
And I thought it was interesting as I was doing the research that most of the tracks that you'll hear were composed specifically for Disney's Animal Kingdom and for this area. A lot of the entrance music was composed by Mark Mancina, who, if you listen how he incorporates a lot of those natural sounds, but I didn't realize he has this sort of long history with, not just Disney, but films in general. And he worked with Hans Zimmer and worked on films like Twister, Tarzan, Brother Bear, Planes, Zach's favorite movie, and Moana. Did a lot of the songs for The Lion King, as well as the Broadway adaptation. So he worked with Phil Collins, and he actually won a Grammy for his work on Tarzan. But when you go from that Oasis area and start to move over to Discovery Island, again, there's this very subtle. The music blends so seamlessly, right? Not just visually, but as you move from area to area, you go from this serene, calming music to more of music that has African and Caribbean influences. Again, also by Mark Mancina. But I think here it starts to he turns it up a little bit. It's a little bit more lively. It's a little bit more, I think the BPMs are up a little bit more. I think it's a little more eclectic, but you start to hear things like steel drums and marimbas. And I think there's a sense of anticipation and joy and curiosity that you start to hear. And I think a lot of this happens very subconsciously, but if you go and specifically listen, you'll start to hear how and as we make our way through the park, how each of these lands evokes, I think, a very different feeling. And I think you even get that here at Discovery Island, which really is sort of the heart of the park. It's sort of that hub of exploration, which I think, again, a lot of people sometimes blow right by a little bit too fast, but that's what this area was meant to be.
Yeah, I have one thing in boldface for Discovery Island, and that is Flame Tree Barbecue. Because if you bring up that loop, I mean, it takes you right to that table on the water. And again, I can't name the songs. I can't even pinpoint exactly what culturally they specifically are, because I think they're not meant to be just one thing at that point of the story. But yeah, lots of flute, lots of string instruments, the drums. And it encompasses everything that is, sitting on the water at Flame Tree, and just taking it all in.
I want to just go on record that I was not the first one to bring food into the conversation, but now that you've opened up the door, all bets are off.
I will proudly wave that flag.
I think it's so cool when you leave, the serenity of the Oasis. It's green. It's kind of dense. You're kind of covered. And then the moment that you break onto that bridge and step into Discovery Island, it opens up. and you're able to see like the blue sky. The colors are bright, so the music is even brighter. It's not only an audio, but it's a visual transition that everything is just cheerful, like very vibrant colors, which, like you said, in the summertime just seem extra hot, and those oranges and reds are just radiating. But when you step into that, there's like you're saying, the kind of Caribbean calypso kind of music is going, the electric guitars, there's flutes. It's bouncy. It's really fun. Like, it's kind of like, okay, here's where we can choose wherever we're going from here. It's this really cool, it's a hub without being the hub. It's your launch pad.
And I think, by design, that's what they wanted. Like, Joe Rohde didn't want signs or maps at the park when he first opened it. And they're like, Joe, calm down, man. We understand about the sense of exploration, but people need to go and like know where they're going. He's like, no, they don't. People just need to sort of like follow their feelings and follow the flow. And whether it's an audio or visual cue that's leading them to their next destination, that's what they need it to be. I think they said, that's fine, Joe. And then they put up signs and handed out maps, anyway. But I think, to your point, Zach, the sounds that you hear, right? So you say, well, Discovery Island, I don't hear any Caribbean. You do. And then when you see, if you look at the tops of some of the buildings and even the color palettes that are used, they sort of fit and feel like that a little bit too. So there's no specific designation of place in terms of where you are, but you do just sort of get a vibe based on the visuals and I think how well they match the audio.
Yeah.
The names of the tracks, are not important, right? They're not like, Mom and Dad, can you turn on so-and-so on the car radio? But when you hear them, I think, like you said, it very much evokes that, especially the first times that you go, that sense of wonder and sense of excitement. And we've talked about this in the past and on past shows about the music. Those post-pandemic days, those first, few days, weeks, months, even after, when we who are local would go to the park and there was not a lot of people there, while we missed the cacophony of voices and laughter, in some cases screaming, adults and children, the music was so much more pronounced. And I really remember that being in Disney's Animal Kingdom. I remember we were there for a nighttime event. And I just felt like, wow, they've just turned the volume of the music up so much more. I never just it wasn't, right? It just wasn't sort of tamped down by the sound of people. And it sort of made me look at the park almost from a different perspective and pay much closer attention to the background music than I think I did before. So let's go from Discovery Island. We're gonna go in clockwise order, but we're gonna save Pandora for last. And I think it only makes sense to go across the bridge over to Africa. And I think this really is where I want to say the music really shines here, but I really love the music in Asia too. And let's sort of like break this, Africa area down, because I think there's sort of this idea of walking into and giving you the sense of stepping foot into Harambe village, which is the heart of this area. And again, the same thing. There are these subtle changes to the architecture and the attractions and the music that is there, right? So you've got this bustling village, you've got the safaris and festival of the Lion King. And when you see, visually a different look from what we saw in Discovery Island, right? The buildings are weathered, the fort has been, gone through whatever. So you get a sense that there is, I think, like history and heritage here, but the music also sort of evokes this very lively energy. And what I like about this is you sort of get that feeling that you've been transported to this vibrant African community, and all of the music that is not just played on the background loop here, but performed here. Right? We'll talk about live music as well. I'm not even going to vaguely attempt to pronounce any of the names of the songs and or the performers, but they are like so much of what we see. that was handcrafted by artisans from Africa. The music was done exactly in the same way.
Yeah, and I think this is going to come up a few times over the course of this conversation, but this is another thing that stands out now, I think, about Disney's Animal Kingdom is they have street performers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I was sort of thinking through, like, comparing it to the other parks. Of course, you know, we've got Festival of the Holidays coming up at Epcot, and we've got, you know, the storytellers there. But other than that, I don't think anything really holds a candle to the street performers that are in the various lands of Disney's Animal Kingdom, if we're starting in Africa with the Tam Tam drummers of Harambe. Yeah. Like, one of my favorite things to do is to, like, get a Dole Whip. You know, if you prefer it, you can go the other way and get an adult beverage and just, you know, stand sort of on the outskirts of the crowd so that you're not going to be making eye contact with anybody who's going to be dragging you up to dance in front of the crowd. But yeah, just like sort of standing back and watching the music there. Yeah, it's just like the energy that comes with live performance and the ability to, like, bring the crowd in and engage everybody and still have this sort of fun, party, festive, like, community atmosphere, you know, with this very peaceful music and, you know, going on in the background. Yeah, it's one of the things that I love about Animal Kingdom generally, and starting in Africa, like the Tam Tam drummers are the first place that my mind would go.
Yeah, I think it just feels like a street party. Like, you kind of come over the bridge, whichever way you're coming in. And like Lisa said, there's just this energy. There's life happening. You know, there's dancers. I mean, sometimes they're like stacking on top of each other. And, you know, there's just the like Afro pop is just blasting and it's amazing. And then you've got, I'm going to try to pronounce, is it Kora Tinga Tinga, like the 21 string harp? It's just free roaming. Like, you never know where it's going to be. You just kind of happen upon it and you can't not smile. You just see it and you're like, oh my gosh, where's that coming from? And then you see this instrument like nothing we have here in the States. And you're mesmerized by this talent that's just free roaming and just creating joy. It's so beautiful.
Well, the other thing too, so a couple of things about the music of, or the background music of Disney's Animal Kingdom. One, the number of songs that are on the loop is massive. So there's a really good chance that while you're making your way through Africa, there's a good chance you won't hear everything on the loop. You can find it. I actually think that the loop might be on Spotify. I know you used to be able to buy it. Like back in the old CD days, there was a loop of, there was a CD of the music of Africa, but I mentioned the same thing, right? The sense of energy that's there, the sense of community. I think the sense of celebration, it's very uplifting. Like, there's a great vibe. And I do love the fact, that's a great point. I didn't realize, like, we sort of lament the loss of live performers in many of the other parks, but here in Disney's Animal Kingdom, they've been back for a long time. There's the Burudika Band. You talked about the Tam Tam drummers. And what I like about this too is it's not just a performance. I think that they invite guests to join in through, you know, clapping and dancing and sometimes pulling adults and kids in. So I think it's almost an interactive type of thing as opposed to sort of just a passive experience. I think what it does too, and I started to think about this after I was mentally making my way through Africa. It's not just about the background music, right? Which, to your point, Zach, there is this blend of cultural rhythms as well as some more modern sort of pop, right? I think sort of like it's been referred to as like Afro beat, what'd you call it? Afro pop. But it also gives you the opportunity to create your own sound, create your own music, because, you know, you're sort of invited to unleash your inner musician, or kids get a little bit of that excess energy, because you can go, they have those interactive percussion instruments, like almost like the over at the African Outpost in Epcot. So if you listen, it's quiet over there, right? There's not a lot of speakers. There's not a lot of bleed over of the music, other if unless there's a live band performing. So you can come over to make your own kind of music, to sort of make your own personal touch to your African adventure. So I think whether you're listening to the curated tracks of Harambe, whether you're dancing to or just enjoying or clapping along to the live music or making your own music, I think this is evidence of what we've been trying to say, is just how important and I think essential music is to the animal kingdom experience. I think it's a very sort of rich tapestry of music, especially here. And I love the fact that it's the combination of not just the tracks that are in the background, but the music that we can watch being performed live, and how you said it changes even some of the music that's being performed seasonally.
And even as you're wandering through, there's the Wildlife Express coming through, and you'll hear that whistle call off in the distance, adding, just one more musical sound. But it's kind of neat because it's, this thing that makes you go, what is that? And it draws you in and deeper into the land, and really kind of invites a sense of discovery based on what you're hearing, not necessarily what you're seeing.
And I think because we're here, we should, it obviously it bears mentioning Festival of the Lion King, with songs from the film and some, I think the music here is like, if you don't get a smile on your face when you go to Festival of the Lion King, it's probably, you're probably... August, that's why. But there are these familiar sounds and songs that we know there, including the adaptations by Hans Zimmer and Elton John. And then I just started thinking too, and I almost forgot about this, and I would have kicked myself if I did. There's actually music in not just the cue of the attraction, but the music of Kilimanjaro Safari has its own soundtrack. And there is a song that has played on the radio of your safari vehicle, like just for a few seconds, like Hapaduniani, which like the first time I heard, I'm like, I need to try and figure out what, and I may or may not have done this more than once, like literally like firing up Shazam and like holding my phone up, trying to figure out what the name of that music is. But I think that too plays such an important part in the attraction, because it gives you that sense of, suspending your disbelief, and you really are on some sort of African safari.
Yeah. I do miss that. Go ahead, Lisa.
No, I mean, I was just going to say too, just to take a step back, like you said, it bears mentioning. It says quite a lot about the subject that we're talking about, that it only bears, quick mentioning that there are, not just one, but we'll get to the other one too, effectively like Broadway caliber shows, amidst all of everything else that we're talking about. The first one, in this conversation, of course, being Festival of the Lion King. It's an extraordinary performance, and I'm so happy the original is back. I think we were all happy to get something back post-COVID, and we got that celebration of the festival that was an abbreviated version of the show. But I know we were all excited to get the original back, and the tumble monkeys and the entire performance, just the way it's all done. Like I used to joke that like my goal job at Disney would be to be the flying bird lady in that show.
Oh God.
I would pay big money.
No, I would not.
But no, it's like a Broadway caliber performance, just sitting in the midst of everything else that we're talking about. And there's another one that we'll get to on the other side of the park.
I will say, if you like Festival of the Lion King at Disney's Animal Kingdom, the Lion King Rhythm of the Pride Lands at Disneyland Paris says, "Hold my adult Dole Whip." It is on a whole nother level. We use the words Broadway quality a lot when we talk about the parks. You almost forget the fact that you're sitting in the theme park when you watch that show. It is absolutely spectacular, and it levels up from anything that you've seen here. And if you don't believe me, I think the three of us should go on a research trip.
Don't have to ask me twice.
I have to twist my arm.
So yeah, I think as we start to sort of continue to transition through, I think I started to think about these in sort of their own individual little buckets, like the sounds of Africa, this bustling village. It's high energy, it's happy and things like that. And then as you make your way over to Asia, I think it's very different, because I think it's not always just about what you hear, but sometimes what you don't. And I think there's this role of silence and even subtlety that comes here. And it's not just the intentional use, but sometimes the intentional absence of music in some of the areas. And I think because of the size of the parks and the importance of wanting to preserve a natural atmosphere, the use of music in some areas is very strategically limited. And I think Imagineers and probably sound engineers avoided filling every space with sound, right? Magic Kingdom, there's always music playing somewhere. You're always going to hear something. I think here and Asia is where I think it's most prevalent, at least for me. The prioritization was almost more of the tranquil environment, probably for guests and for animals as well, than it was about having specific music playing in the background. So as you start to walk from Asia to Africa, which I think is one of the most beautiful areas and the most serene areas in any of the parks. And I think we've talked in the past about sort of the hidden pathway that has since sort of been closed off back there, and even a little place to sit. I think as you start to move away from the bustling village and the attractions and the restaurant, the music sometimes not just fades away, but almost disappears entirely, allowing the sounds, the sounds of nature almost to take over. And I think this creates such a beautiful, like subtle transition between the more lively areas of Africa to some of a little bit more of, I think, to me, Asia, other than that, Expedition Everest has a little bit more of a laid back feel. And then you go from the higher energy African music to more of traditional Southeast Asia and South Asia. And I think that there's almost like this sense of not just like serenity now and tranquility, but almost a little bit of mystique to the music there, with the bamboo flutes and the gongs and the chimes, that there's almost like, not that I spend a lot of time meditating, but there's almost like a meditative quality to the background music here, right? And it's the sounds of Nepal and Bangladesh and India that don't fill this fictional town of Anandapur, but I think allows it to just sort of breathe and be quiet and sort of blend seamlessly into the natural surroundings.
Yeah, I mean, I think Asia respects the fact that like real life doesn't have background music. So to the extent that there is music there, it's very subtle. It's very sort of, woven into everything else. And then there's, we have sitar music back now, very recently. And I stumbled upon them a few weeks ago when I was in the park, and they were wonderful. I know that Stephen Mikes passed away in 2023, which was sad at Chakranati, I believe is what they called him. He was a sitar player who was in the Asia area for many, many years. We just got, I think in September, a duo that's playing just about every hour. It's called Beats and Strings. They're wonderful. So it's, they're a Hindustani raga band is what they're called. But I caught them the other day, and they're just like vibing up there. You can tell they're having a great time. Like the music they're playing is great. And it's just so nice to have like that stage occupied again by somebody, because Stephen brought so much to the park before.
Yeah. I love that transition point, like you mentioned, Lou, going from Africa to Asia, and it does get kind of quiet. And it's cool because the sound of like bongos and those drums from Africa shift to the tabla drums, which are much more those hand drums that are a lot in Indian music, and how it's just this shift. And I was walking through there the other day, and there was a gentleman sitting at that little covered seating area with his laptop doing work by the little waterfall. And I was like, that guy, he is winning. He has got the greatest office in the world. Like that. He's got it figured out. But like the music, it's almost mysterious. It kind of pulls you in. It shifts. It's not as peppy. It's so much more laid back. And like you said, it's very serene. And you just walk in and it's like, okay, let's even slow my pace a little bit more until I get to the Joffrey stand and then I get my hit of caffeine. But it's that walk right through there past Yak and Yeti. It's just so beautiful. I love that area.
Right. And that actually is the beginning, I think, of the transition point, because as you go over to Expedition Everest and the music there is not traditional cultural folk music. The tracks are Everest Base Camp and Yeti Encounter. So you have traditional Tibetan music, but you also have a little bit more of adventurous themes. I think you feel the same things when you go over to Kali River Rapids, where it's more Indian and Southeast Asian. Mm-hmm. But so you've got the sitars again and the tabla, but you also have a little bit more of creating the sense of anticipation for what is going to be a very wet, very high energy attraction.
Yeah.
I think, and it's a cruel joke, because going and sitting in the back of Yak and Yeti counter service is one of my favorite places to eat and favorite places just to sort of chill. And I think in terms of time and distance, it is the farthest point from my office in my house. Like, if I could create a little transporter and just click my heels and get there, I would spend way more time there, not in the summer. And I wish I could. I wish I would and make that, pardon the pun, trek out there, because I think, look, it was done very thoughtfully everywhere, but I think this combination of the architecture and the landscaping and the sound design, even sort of the different kind of levels, right? If you sort of look at the topography of Asia, the land, there are sort of subtle changes in the level. And I love sort of going and sitting down behind the Coke stand. You go down those few stairs and you can sit. There's a few tables right by the water.
Yeah.
You want to talk about a place of serenity now. Like, that's it. Grab a little tea, grab a little fried rice. Like, you're winning. Maybe you run into Yak and Yeti for the tuna nachos. It's fine. But I think it is not just one of the most well-crafted areas in all of Walt Disney World. I think it may be one of the most harmonious, not like Epcot's harmonious, but like actually like truly harmonious areas of the parks.
Yeah, I think it rivals like the Japan Pavilion's Katsura Grill area.
Whoa, slow down, sister.
I know. I'm just thinking it again. I just
words.
But I think that's sort of that's what I mean. Like when I think through the parks, like when I go through the parks, like place by place and try to think about like the most serene places in each park, like that's the only thing that I can think of that really competes with that area. Katsura Grill is maybe some areas throughout Animal Kingdom, especially in the Asia area.
Right. Yeah. Because I think they parallel in that the music is also intentionally quieter in both places. So I think the music blends a little bit more seamlessly into the background surroundings rather than trying to draw attention to it, right? Like the music in Africa is meant to draw attention to it. Where here, it's meant to be part of the audio landscape.
Yeah.
They just kind of fall into the background.
Yeah.
And outside of those whooping monkeys that are on that little island there, but when you're over by like Kali River Rapids, the water of the rapids is going by and there's the deep drums that come from that attraction that's similar to the Japan Pavilion. And it's almost like this white noise machine that you've got water and the rhythmic nature of the drums. And after a while, it can just lull you. It's so cool how it just kind of locks into this repetitive kind of droning, but it's so incredibly soothing in the midst of, being right next to one of their e-ticket thrill attractions.
So you're in Asia, you have a full belly, right? You've had Mr. Kamal's fries, you've had maybe 11 or 12 samosas, you've had your ahi tuna nachos, you've had your fried rice, you've had your egg rolls, you've had your tea, and you're just sort of meandering, waddling, plodding your way through. And then all of a sudden, it hits you. Let's take a moment to say thank you and goodbye to DinoLand U.S.A. Give a little bit of love to its very deliberate kitschiness. It embraces its quirkiness in a lot of different ways. And I think one of the things about the DinoLand that's always been interesting is that on its face, it almost feels like it clashes with the park's very immersive, right? Very natural. Vibe, which I think for some people was the reason why they never really latched onto it, all right, or sort of fell in love with it. But, if you go to the backstory in this, everything is very intentional. This tacky roadside carnival aesthetic is what was meant to be, and I think for people who did love and still do love, it's still there for now, depending on when you're listening, was part of the charm. And the music here is completely different. Like, forget everything that we said about the music from the time that we walked, through the gate. The music here is very intentionally playful, right? It's pop and rock and some dinosaur extinction related themes through a lot of the music. So I think the soundtrack here, if you pay attention to the music in terms of the lyrics, I think it adds to the narrative, right? So there's this sort of feeling that there's this underground radio station run by the Dino Institute interns that is playing all of these songs that are, I think for the most part, rooted in 50s, 60s, maybe a little bit of early 70s rock and roll. So forget the authentic cultural instruments from Asia and Africa, because here it's electric guitars and drum kits and Moog synthesizers and, very sort of, it's almost novelty music, right? It's almost like the novelty music that was really popular in the 50s, 60s, even going into the 80s. But it very much represents that sense of humor and lightheartedness. So, Dancing with a Dinosaur, I'm a little dinosaur. If I had a dinosaur, it's the end of the world as we know it. Sweet dinosaur of mine, Brontosaurus, walk the dinosaur, bad to the bone. I mean, there's probably 17 to 20 different tracks that you'll hear here, as well as some that were created specifically for the attractions. There's a theme to, it was Countdown to Extinction. Then eventually when it became Dinosaur, Finding Nemo, the musical, if you want to make me cry, we can talk about, that and what it meant to me as my son was growing up. But, so talk to me, Lisa and then Zach, about your feelings about the apparent inherent conflict between DinoLand U.S.A. and the rest of Disney's Animal Kingdom.
I mean, I think like everything that they do, it was, obviously quite deliberate. I think it's sort of meant to be a part of the park maybe that speaks to a slightly different audience and caters to a slightly different audience. And it's just a little bit more fun and lighthearted and silly. And, anywhere that I can go and hear Walk the Dinosaur playing in the background, I'm not going to complain. The one thing I do need to mention is that on your walk to DinoLand, you may or may not have skipped my favorite music in the park over at Finding Nemo.
I was going to say I was saving Finding Nemo separately, because I can't. I'm going to be an emotional wreck. Yeah.
Okay. We can come back to that. No, I mean, I don't have that much to say about DinoLand except, may it rest in peace. And I guess I'll have to listen to Walk the Dinosaur in my own time from now on.
I think it's clever Imagineering. If the rest of the park is, an animal sanctuary, it's these real lands that we get to walk through, that this is where the kids have run the radio station. They're just playing whatever without any care or regard to the rest of the world around them. They're blasting their rock and roll. So it's pretty genius. But I do love over the Dinosaur Institute, like when you step through the, kind of main arches there, it feels very cinematic. Like you've kind of stepped into a movie, and the James Newton Howard score from the movie is just big. It's bombastic. It's but then there's some like really sweet and sweeping pieces, which is really cool, but it just really like, you know that when you've stepped into this, you are in a self-contained adventure. And I think that's done so well that, and it doesn't happen until the moment that you step through that, and all the rock and roll in the 50s and 60s is back there. But now you are here in this very cinematic space. It's really well done.
And to some extent, it makes me that much more excited about what's coming, because it's a similarly high energy. Obviously, we're getting Encanto. So what are they calling it? The Pueblo? I forget what it's called, but yeah, similarly, like, high energy. It feels like it might mesh a little bit better in some respects with the rest of the park. But I'm excited to see, like, how they bring a similar energy level or a similar vibe in the form of Encanto.
So I wanted to save Finding Nemo the musical, like, as its own separate thing, because it where it's located, sort of, right, is part of DinoLand, but it's not part of DinoLand. It is its own very special thing. And I have a very strong sentimental, emotional attachment to this. It is not often, and it might be the only time, and I remember the very first time I watched it, that I came out of a show and I looked around, I'm like, where's the merch cart? Because and I went and I bought the CD. And I still have it. It's an orange CD, funny. And I brought it home. And this is what my son, so stupid. This is what my son, like, when he was a baby, we would put on for him every night. So I would be in his room, and I've heard this soundtrack probably more than the people who actually wrote it, because it was like his thing, and he still has the CD, like, hanging in his room, which I just absolutely love. My son's 19, by the way. He doesn't sing it quite as often. Maybe he does. I don't know. I'm not paying attention. Whatever happens in there happens. But I love that they took a movie that was not a musical and made a musical out of it in such just a brilliant way. I love the show, and I almost started singing. In 20 years of podcasting, this was only the second time I opened up my mouth and, like, words were about to come out in some sort of musical format. But Big Blue World and Fish Are Friends, I almost did it again. Fish Are Friends, Fish Are Friends, Not Food, Just Keep Swimming, We Swim Together, Not My Dad, then That's My Dad. Like, it tells, just from a musical perspective, they tell the story on that CD. If you can find it, or if it's on Spotify, like, just sit down and listen to it from beginning to end. I think it's beautiful. It's still, to this day, and I haven't seen it in a long time, but remains one of not just my favorite shows, but one of my favorite soundtracks in all the parks.
I don't know how you just listed those songs and didn't say Go With The Flow, though. How did that just happen? It's like the best song in any show.
Because if I say it, I'm going to sing it.
I know. It's as I was thinking about, all right, it's coming. I can't sing as I think. But Go With The Flow is the catchiest. Like, the guy who plays Crush is so good. So good. Yeah. Go With The Flow is like, it's on so many playlists that I have. It's phenomenal.
See, now when we're done here, I'm going to end up turning it on, and I'm going to be a weeping mess. I'll stop recording before I do that, I promise.
That's how you go viral. This video of Lou Mongello in a puddle of tears on his floor listening to the Nemo soundtrack.
While singing.
We will never do a Meet of the Month. Just really, note to self, no Meet of the Month at Finding Nemo the musical.
So I'm going to say something shocking that I've only seen Finding Nemo the musical once. And it was in its original form, so I need to go now that it's been this updated form. But in my era, it was Tarzan Rocks. And that was amazing. Just rollerblades, electric guitars, singing, and aerobatics. It was a wild time, no pun intended.
To quote Zach, dude, focus, dude. If I don't stop, I'm going to start singing. Maybe we do need to go. Maybe you need to pick me up. We need to go get a few snacks. And by snacks, I mean everything that they serve in Asia, and then go watch Finding Nemo the musical.
You name the day and time, I'm there.
As soon as we're done. All right, move on. Let's go over to Pandora, the world of Avatar, because I think like DinoLand, it is unique for a lot of reasons. We go from, high energy music in Africa to more almost sort of ambient background music in Asia to this kitschy, quirky music in DinoLand to very still immersive, but I think very otherworldly. And like Asia and Africa, I think it blends some of the quote unquote natural elements with some of the electronic elements, right? So you hear flutes and there's what almost feels like there might be sort of like indigenous inspired percussions. There's chanting, but there's also synthesizers. So instead of giving you the sense of, calm or the sense of anticipation, I think this is meant to give you the sense of wonder and awe and stepping into something that you have never experienced before. And I think if you really pay attention, and I think one of the best places to pay attention is sitting outside of Nomad Lounge with everything they have on the menu, as we have done in the past, and listen to the music, because you could just start to hear the transition over the bridge there. But there is this, no pun intended, but it sort of bridges this gap between the organic and, for lack of a better word, almost sort of the mystical sounds that you hear coming from Pandora. And I think what this does, I think Pandora almost sort of set a benchmark for immersive theme park storytelling for an environment that doesn't exist, to sort of create a connection between the land and its inhabitants. And I mean that as Pandora paved the way for what we ended up getting over in Galaxy's Edge, from those organic, outer space sounds, but blending into this fictional, quote unquote, natural environment. And what it does, I think the music, as much as what you see or taste or hear is it creates the world building that the music helps to create and set the stage for here is unlike anything else. And I think too, if you're a fan of the films or if you've just seen the films, I think it's amazing sort of the continuity that they were able to create between the Avatar films and the Pandora in-park soundtrack.
I think the animal noises in the background also sort of bring it into the fold with the rest of the park, because obviously, setting DinoLand aside for obvious reasons, there are no actual animals in Pandora, which is different from the rest of Animal Kingdom. And in having that background music, the background like animals and life sort of woven into the music soundtrack, it's sort of telling us there's life here too.
Yeah.
There's life here too. You don't see it. It's not, it's not on a safari in front of you or in an enclosure in front of you, but there is life here.
I think it's so well done, like especially in that area coming from like the west side of Africa. It's that long pathway along the water, and it just kind of starts, and it's like just the sounds of nature. It's like, is it bugs? Are they birds? There's something in the trees that I can't see. And it's so cool that it just draws you in. And, James Horner's score, that's just all throughout. He's one of my favorite composers, outside of John Williams, but he's just so good. And it's all so sweeping. Like, it just feels like epic as you walk in. It's just, it's big, as tall as the floating mountains are, it just feels like the music is that big and just causes you to look around. It's a beautifully done soundscape.
It gives you goosebumps. Score. Sorry, it does. Yeah, no, just say it gives you goosebumps as you're walking in.
It's awe-inspiring. Like when you ride on Flight of Passage, that score, like you feel it. You definitely pay attention to it. And I think in contrast to Asia, there is every corner of Pandora is sort of imbued with soundscapes that help sort of, because you need that there to create the atmosphere. If it wasn't there, it would sort of almost maybe suspend your disbelief a little bit. And I think the idea of you've created this fictional, like world of people that would have their own culture and values and instruments. So the music that's there, although this is a fictional like world and people and place, I think it is meant to similarly reflect the culture and conservation that the rest of the park does. Because so for like if you're on Navi River, it feels like, right? So now imagine in your mind's eye or your mind's ear the shaman singing. It feels like ancient hymns, right? It feels so you feel that there's like a history and a heritage here. But then if you also, when there's no music, you get these very sort of alien background soundscapes. So there's that similar type of blend of the music and the unnatural but natural environment. And again, like you said, Zach, it sort of all goes back to that original Avatar score. And so I think the music here doesn't I think the music in Pandora, unlike some other places, doesn't sort of lay the foundation for the land. I think it helps to complete the land. I think if it wasn't there, the land, it wouldn't have the same feeling. We wouldn't sort of get that same sort of emotional feeling that we get from that land. Whether it's the sort of, like you said, the sweeping orchestral themes to some of just the more natural ambient, almost quieter background music that plays through. But it's this, it's that sort of perfect synergy of what you see, the sights and the sound and the story that I think set that standard, like I said, for what we ended up seeing in Galaxy's Edge and whatever might be coming next.
And the music feels...
I'm hard pressed to think of an attraction anywhere at Disney that relies on its music less than Navi River.
Yeah.
Like, I think Navi River is its music. I mean, it's beautiful. The bioluminescence is beautiful. Like it's a lovely boat ride. But that attraction is absolutely nothing without the shaman song.
It is. It's like a boat ride through a song. It's a musical journey, and that's almost needs to be like the subheading. And like Lou said, it's this kind of hymn that love it or hate it, the shaman song that's just playing over and over. But you hear all the other voices singing. So. Feels like this ancient thing that you've come into, like, oh, they all know this. This is part of their world, part of their lifestyle. And you come into that going, oh, this is already happening and I'm getting to join in. And the drum circle that's just beyond that attraction. Sometimes it's not, operating, but when it is, it's never the same, depending on if it's just happened upon it or there's someone leading it from the parks. It's really kind of incredible. It's booming.
I think you hit on the operative word, right? You talk about joining in. We're singing Ma'ewa, Ma'ewa. We have no idea what the heck Ma'ewa means, but we're singing along because it's catchy and you almost feel like, oh, like this is part of the Navi culture. Like this is what I'm supposed to be singing along.
Well, it's the B-side of Omela Wela.
But the whole attraction is approaching the song. The whole attraction is a boat ride to a song. And there is actually a translation. It's apparently like written by Paul Frommer, like in Navi, and it's all about wood sprites.
Oh, okay.
I read the translation and I still don't understand what it was about.
The more you know.
I'll just keep on saying Ma'ewa, Ma'ewa, and then making my way over to Satuli Canteen. So,
but before we hit Satuli, we have to talk about Flight of Passage for just a moment, because that attraction is incredible. Just and it's big, it's fast, it's carrying you, it's soaring on crack, and then you step in and there's that moment when you kind of like enter into the Fruity Pebbles cave. You guys know what I'm talking about. And it's like the music stops and kind of allows you to catch your breath, and it shifts, and it's just very ethereal, and there's lots more like bells, and it's light, and it's kind of like fairy music. And then it just goes psycho again, and you're just swooping and flying, and it's the most exciting thing. And I know that attraction would not be the same if it had not been for the music.
I say this all the time. I always talk about, make sure you look up and you look down. But there are, and I think I developed this when I was working on my audio tours to Magic Kingdom, those many years ago. I think sometimes we're so, especially if you're not local and you're visiting and you only have a finite amount of time. But if you ever find yourself being able to do so, like find a spot out of the way of people and traffic and just sit and just close your eyes and just listen. Like allow yourself to enjoy and explore the area. And I think Animal Kingdom is a great place for it, just audibly. And as we've been talking about, some places there is music everywhere. Some places it's not. Some places, like in Asia, I think the sound is what you don't hear, not what you do hear. Listen to how the music changes. Listen to those transitions and how seamlessly they blend from one another. Even when you go to some of the different dining and shopping areas. So if you go to Yak and Yeti, both inside, especially if you go inside, the environment is created because you have those Southeast Asian influences in the music. If you go into Tiffin's, it's more exotic, it's more adventurous. And if you go over to the Harambe market, same thing. It's a little more lively. It creates this sort of higher energy shopping and dining experience there. And, this single park with these different lands, much like Magic Kingdom, has not just different styles of music, but I love the fact that so many different cultures and people and histories are represented in sort of the four corners of this, obviously massive park. Was there anything else from a specific music track that we missed in any of the areas?
I think we covered everything on my 3 pages of notes.
The only thing that I don't think we talked about is just the music right around the Tree of Life specifically. Mm-hmm. Discovery Island has its music, but Tree of Life, the gardens especially, it's so chill and so relaxing. And that's my go sit there and be quiet for a moment. And with your eyes shut, there's waterfalls, there's a little river. It's so nice. I mean, it's not, Beauty and the Bees and we're pollinators and that whole thing, but it's just this super relaxing music that you just can't beat it. It's so relaxing.
So let's talk about what the future is going to look like as we make way for DinoLand U.S.A. to make way for the tropical Americas. How does what is potentially coming impact, and how is that going to sort of blend in, and what are you sort of looking forward to, not just from a cultural perspective, but ones that, music that's going to tie in. Look, that John Williams music that we can't wait to hear for Indiana Jones, as well as the music from Encanto.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've already seen just how, far left field that they can go with DinoLand in the theming. So I'm eager to see what they do with Encanto, and obviously the Indiana Jones area. It's going to be beautiful, and I can only imagine it's Encanto weaves in with everything we've been talking about, just because just like Pandora being driven so much by its music. If ever there was a recent movie by Disney that was driven by its music, it was Encanto. So they've done a good job so far in adapting things like that. So I'm eager to see what they can do here.
I am a sucker for anything Indiana Jones, so the John Williams score is going to be great. But just looking at Central Americas or tropical Americas, the Latin influence that we're going to get, just all the guitar music, it's going to be just full of life. I'm really excited. I love Dinosaur. It was my favorite growing up, but I'm really looking forward to the transformation of this land because I think we can only win. Right. I'm hoping we get like capybaras or some sort of really cool animal in that space, but the music of just like that space is going to be incredible. I can only imagine.
And I think unlike what we've heard anywhere else, right? You're going to have the guitars and percussions, but you're going to have, marimbas and things like that to really sort of showcase. It's a very musical, calling it the tropical America, Central. it's a very musically diverse area. So in addition to the soundtracks that we're going to get from the Encanto inspired attraction and Indiana Jones, I'm very curious to see and eventually hear what the live performances are going to be like. Are we going to have those marimbas and guitars and percussion sort of bringing to life as we just talked about in Africa, the same way the music in addition to the ambient soundscapes and the background music and the different types of music that we might encounter as we make our way. And there's these invisible sort of transition points that happen between some of the different areas within that single land that, again, like the rest of Animal Kingdom, reflect the cultural representation and authenticity and, to provide an experience that is not only enjoyable, but I think, educational and enriching and obviously respectful too of the cultures as well. So, we've gone from, it's been a sort of interesting sort of journey as we made our way clockwise through Animal Kingdom, as we've gone from the very serene entrance music of the Oasis to the higher energies in Harambe, the quirkiness of DinoLand U.S.A. The music of Disney's Animal Kingdom really spans a very, very wide range of cultures and styles and emotions and everything else. Do you have a specific area of the park or soundtrack in a section of this park that really resonates with you?
I mean, it's kind of hard to say because I could say Pandora just because it truly gives me goosebumps. But the parts that really speak to me the most are the most like ephemeral, like the most difficult to put my hands on because when we opened and I mentioned, half jokingly sitting at that table at the back of Flame Tree Barbecue over the water and that music that sort of wraps around you while you're sitting there. I mean, it's places like that speak to me the most. And I couldn't tell you one track. I couldn't tell you the name of one track. I have enough expertise in music to talk about the specifics like Zach does of like what instrument it is but the parts of Animal Kingdom that like make me feel the most at home in that park are like those places that kind of wrap around me in those little nooks and crannies that I think Joe would be so happy to know that even though they do give out park maps that there's still like those it's true, like he kind of got his way anyway, right? Because there's park maps, but there's like nooks and crannies to explore at Animal Kingdom like there's not at any other park. And I think everybody has their little pocket of Animal Kingdom and whatever music is playing there. For me, it might be Flame Tree. For you, it might be something else. But it's that vibe. It's not like being in Epcot and hearing, La Vie en Rose. It's the percussion and flute music sitting at my favorite. It's
why I asked you the question, right? Because you mentioned Epcot. We talked, for 45 minutes about Papillon in Epcot because we know it by name. We know the artist. We seek out that song specifically on Spotify, right? We have it in a playlist. Other than maybe Hapa Duniani, or maybe it's just me, or the soundtrack for Finding Nemo, we probably aren't like, oh, these are the tracks from Disney's Animal Kingdom that I'm seeking out. But if you hear it, it's familiar, it's comforting, it transports you to that place. Or if you have that playlist on your Spotify or Apple Music, you know exactly where you are by songs where you don't know the words, you don't know the artist, but you know the feeling and sort of the connective tissue that it brings to you from where you were when you heard it in the park.
Something that's so incredible about Animal Kingdom is its scale. And I think that the music just sets that. Almost every place you look is this new vista. So for me, it goes back to the Tree of Life. Those spaces when you're either down by the water and looking up, across the way and the sun, the sunset is catching it just right, or the Tree of Life gardens that wrap around, or the queue leading up to It's Tough to Be a Bug. The music that accompanies that is incredible. It's just these vistas that are set, and it's like you're stepping into this Nat Geo documentary that's just right in front of you. It's such an incredibly beautiful park, and the music is what really just kind of just wraps it up and creates that magical moment.
Yeah, I think, as we've seen, the music here is so much more than just background music. I think depending on where you are, it really is sort of the heartbeat of that land or the heartbeat of the park, whether it is tranquil, whether it is, celebratory, whether it is otherworldly from Pandora. I think it immerses us. It connects us. It very much helps to tell the story. I'm very curious to see what the Tropical Americas expansion is going to bring and how that's going to transport us to some place we have not seen or been yet. My hope is that you who are at home or in your car or at Animal Kingdom who are listening, that the next time you visit the park, that you do take a moment to stop and just listen to not just the ambient sounds and the natural sound, the sounds of nature, but, let that music connect you to the place that you are, whether it inspires you, whether it reminds you of something, and really let that be part of the storytelling element. I would love to know from you who is listening, our friend, what you think about the music of Disney's Animal Kingdom. What music resonates with you? What music do you think about when you're home? Do you play on Spotify? Do you look forward to hearing? Or do you have that playlist of Disney's Animal Kingdom music that you do play to connect you to this place when you can't get here as often as you would like? Please let me know. There's a number of different ways. One, I would love to hear from you, and I'll play it on the air. Be part of the show. Call the voicemail at 407-900-9391. That's 407-900-WDW1. Tell me your thoughts. Let me hear the emotion in your voice if you're calling from Disney's Animal Kingdom with the aforementioned fried rice and chicken egg roll, even better. You can also be part of the community and conversation over in the clubhouse. I will post that question there at wdwradio.com/clubhouse. None of this happens without the two of you, my friends, Lisa DeNoto-Glassner and Zachariah Brown. Please tell people where they can find and connect with you on social.
My blog and my website is thecastlerun.com. I also have a photography business where I do fine art and portraiture called thousandcircles.com. And you can reach me over at Instagram as well at The Castle Runner.
And I have the Zach Brown Show podcast. Everybody has passions and stories, and it's those similarities that make the world a little bit more friendly and a whole lot smaller. So come and hear stories and meet old friends for the first time. You can follow me on Instagram at It's Zach Brown.
Nice. I will link to all of those in the show notes over at WDWRadio.com. Thank you very much for joining me tonight. My last question for you, because we all know that Animal Kingdom is so far away. But if you could snap your fingers, and we'll pretend that it's 71 degrees outside, it's not very crowded, but you could snap your fingers and plant yourself anywhere in Disney's Animal Kingdom. I'm hoping that your correct answer is going to be, I'm going to be at this restaurant or have food from this place. But if you had to just go and sit just to listen, where would you put yourself in Animal Kingdom?
I would be on the outdoor patio at Nomad Lounge, having a nosh as well.
Lisa took my answer, and I would definitely be having an Annapurna Zing.
Table for three, please, at Nomad Lounge. Maybe we need to do like a follow-up show, like from Nomad Lounge, and I'm just looking for an excuse to...
Listen, you're making a lot of promises tonight.
I know. Yeah, that might be where I would go too. While an egg roll and fried rice in Asia sounds nice. That of course now I have to go see Finding Nemo the musical and just let my little emotional wellspring flow.
It's a long walk from Nomad Lounge.
Oh my God, it's so far. It's so far away.
It's worth it though.
I have to stop recording because I'm going to start singing, and I don't need that evidence out there on the internet. Time to test your Disney knowledge with our Walt Disney World Trivia Question of the Week contest. see all you know your Disney history, details, or can identify a quote or sound clip from parks. And if you think you know the answer, you can enter for a chance to win a Disney prize package. And this week's trivia contest is once again brought to you by you, the true heart and soul of WDW Radio. And by joining the WDW Radio Nation family, you're not just helping to support the podcast, live shows, and events. You are truly part of making magic, because for as little as $1 per month, not only can you enjoy perks like monthly scavenger hunts, group video calls, exclusive surprises and care packages from the parks, and much more. Plus, and more importantly, your support helps our Dream Team project, which has raised more than $550,000 for the Make-A-Wish Foundation, bringing magic to families truly in need. Learn more and join us today over at www.radio.com/support. And I want to quickly thank some new and longtime members of the Nation family, including Heather Godin, Brian Pearson, Erica Ellis, Helen P., Katie Price, and Marco Espinoza. I love and appreciate you, and I'm so grateful for your support, friendship, and help. Now, before we get to this week's question, let's go back, review last week's, and select our winner. So Festival of the Arts is happening now over at Epcot Center, and Figment is once again front and center where he belongs. I have been a fan of the attraction and the character since it debuted in 1983. Maybe not during that second iteration, but that's fine. But your question last week was to tell me what TV show helped inspire the creation of everyone's favorite little purple dragon. Thank you so much to so many of you who entered, got this one correct, and knew that the answer is, of course, Magnum P.I. Now, after you've Googled who or what Magnum P.I. is, Tony Baxter, one of the lead Imagineers on the project, was working on a project for Discovery Bay in Disneyland that would eventually evolve into Dreamfinder and Figment. And while one night, sitting down watching Magnum P.I. on TV, and basically in this episode, Magnum P.I.'s butler, Higgins, because all private investigators obviously had butlers, noticed his garden was a mess because Magnum was hiding a goat out there. Again, this was 80s, it was very weird. And when Higgins is like, hey, Magnum, come here, something's been eating all the plants, Magnum says, oh, it's just a figment of your imagination. To which Higgins replied a simple line that would literally change Disney fandom forever. He said, figments don't eat grass. The light bulb goes off over Tony Baxter's head. He leaps out of his lazy boy, at least in my imagination, and exclaims to his butler, because I guess everybody had butlers, that's it, this is the name, because nobody had ever drawn what a figment is. So there's this great word that has great meaning to people, but nobody's ever seen what one looks like. So they had the name. All they had to do was just design the shape for it. So the next time you hug your Figment Funko or plush, you can thank Tony Baxter and Tom Selleck. So once again, I took all the correct entries, randomly selected one, and last week you were playing for a WDW Radio keychain, stickers, a pin, and a mystery prize. And last week's winner, randomly selected, is Joanne Moody. So Joanne, congratulations. I'll get your prize package out to you right away. And if you played last week and didn't win, that's okay, because here is your next chance to enter in this week's Walt Disney World Trivia Challenge. So as long as we're talking about Disney's Animal Kingdom, let's stay in Disney's Animal Kingdom, sort of, because what was the land that was originally planned as part of the Disney's Animal Kingdom park, but was never built, although there's still a few subtle references left in the park today? What is the name of the land is in Disney's Animal Kingdom that was planned for and never built, although you can still find a few references to it in the parks today? Now, I'm going to give you not 1, but 2 weeks for this contest, because I am going to be on the WDW Radio cruise on the Disney Treasure starting this Saturday. So you have until Sunday, February 16th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern to go to WDWRadio.com, click on this week's podcast, use the form there. And again, you're going to play for the keychain, the stickers, the pin, and the mystery prize that I'm going to bring home for you from the Disney Treasure. So good luck and have fun. That's going to do it for this week's show. Thank you so very much for listening, and more importantly, being part of the WDW Radio community and family. I am so grateful to you and for your time and for your support. Always remember, you are not a fan, but you are instead a friend. A couple of quick updates and reminders for you. I'm sure you've heard me talk about on the show how our Dream Team project, raising money for Make-A-Wish, is really the most important part of what we have been doing, really going back to when I started writing my first Walt Disney World trivia book back in 2003. Over the years, we have done a number of events and auctions. Stay tuned, we're coming back. And our WDW Radio running team has literally hundreds of members from around the world that run not just for fun, not just for medals and the box of snacks at the end, but to also help raise money for Make-A-Wish. And look, I understand not everybody is into, built for, I'm pointing to myself, for running a marathon or even a 5K. And while the running team has brought together runners, walkers, woggers, joggers, cheerers while raising money for Make-A-Wish, we are now expanding so that even more people, like you, can participate. No training, equipment, preparation, or recovery required, because this year we are forming the WDW Radio walking team, and our community and family are going to be participating in our very first event, the 18th annual Morgan & Morgan Walk for Wishes in Orlando. This is going to be a great, fun new way to join the community, support Make-A-Wish, have some fun, and of course, make a difference. The Walk for Wishes is a nationwide Make-A-Wish fundraiser that supports granting life-changing wishes for children with critical illnesses. It's a family-friendly event. It's only 1 mile, literally less than half the distance, like walking around World Showcase. I'm going to participate. I would love and welcome and invite you to as well. To join the WDW Radio Walk for Wishes team, please go to wdwradio.com/walk4wishes25, the number 25. You can sign up there. Again, the event date is Thursday, March 27th, 2025. It starts at 5 p.m. in Orlando, Florida. It's going to be a great way to connect, have some fun, and continue making magic happen for kids who need it most. Whether you walk with us there in person or you can do it virtually wherever you are, you can be part of this community that truly cares. And next, in the more exciting news that I want to share with you, my Walt Disney World audio walking tours of the parks. These guided, binaural, three-dimensional audio walking tours where I take you on a personal visit through Magic Kingdom that I released going all the way back to 2008 with Main Street USA and then continuing on through all the parks. Well, I've decided to take these immersive, in-depth, guided walking tours of Walt Disney World and make them available to you free as a podcast. It is my very small gift to you, whether you are planning your next trip, reminiscing about your last visit, or just want to experience some of that Disney magic from home. You can now listen anytime, anywhere, and it's like you and I are walking through every land of the Magic Kingdom, exploring the secrets and the history and fun facts, all in binaural 3D audio. It sounds great in headphones, by the way. It is available now for free on your favorite podcast app. Just search for Audio Guides to Walt Disney World and or Lou Mongello. I just released Magic Kingdom. I'll be releasing Adventureland soon, and then I'll come out with new ones every week or so. And if you enjoy the audio guides, I hope that you do. The best ways you can help is by 1, subscribing so that you don't miss an episode, rate and review in Apple Podcasts or Spotify, so not only do you not miss an episode, but it'll help other people find the show as well. And most importantly, the best way you can help is by sharing the show with a friend and or on social media. And whether you've heard the guides before or you've never had a chance to listen to them, I hope you enjoy them. Also, please be kind. Remember that I recorded these about 17 years ago, so I probably sound a little bit different than I do now, but these are a lot of fun, whether you are listening at home, in the car, or on your next visit to Walt Disney World. And if you share a link to the audio guides on social, please tag me at Lou Mongello so I can be sure to like, follow, and reshare that for you. Speaking of social, you can connect with me, chat with me there. I'm at Lou Mongello, primarily on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. I still believe that nothing beats a handshake and a hug, so stay tuned for information about our next Meet of the Month in Walt Disney World coming up soon. We have our cruise on the Disney Treasure coming up this week. I'll be sharing primarily on my Instagram reels and videos and stories day to day as it happens over our 7-day adventure. Also, be sure to visit our events page at wdwradio.com to find out about upcoming events, including we still have one spot. That's one room up to 2 people for our WDW Radio Adventures by Disney to Japan coming up this May. I am so excited. It's going to be the trip of a lifetime. I did it a number of years ago. I cannot wait to go back with you again. To learn more and get a free no obligation quote, you can visit wdwradio.com/Japan25. And if Japan's not your thing or the timing doesn't work, we also have 1 double or single room left for our Southern California and Disneyland Hollywood Adventures by Disney, July 6th, 2025. And there are still cabins available for our February 2026 cruise on the Disney Destiny. And again, you can find out more and get a free no obligation quote from my friends over at mousefantravel.com by going to wdwradio.com/events. And whether you are traveling with us or wherever your travels take you, my trusted and recommended partner for more than 17 years, Mousefan Travel, can handle all the details so you can focus on making memories. It's who I use, it's who I recommend, because it's who I trust with expert personal service and no fees. They make your planning stress-free. Again, you can visit them over at mousefantravel.com. And if you are a creator or solopreneur looking to turn the thing that you love into the thing that you do, my Momentum Weekend Retreat, March 14th through the 16th, this intimate 8-person immersive mastermind weekend has just 2 spots left, and I've extended the super early bird discount. And I've also just put tickets on sale for my Momentum Weekend Workshop this October, where we combine hands-on lessons with real-world strategies in a 50-person, one-room event and workshop to start, grow, and monetize your business. You can learn more and reach out to me over at LouMongello.com. And if you are looking for a speaker for your event, conference, or school, and want to leverage lessons from the Disney parks on customer service and experience, or Walt Disney on leadership, I can craft a custom presentation for you and help you make some magic in your own business. And I think that's it. If you like what you hear, and I hope that you do, please help spread the word, share the show, tell a friend. Remember to be kind, choose the good, have a great day, and even better tomorrow. I love and appreciate you. So until next time, as Charles Muntz from Up once said, adventure is out there. Bye.
Hello, Lou. Me and my dad are going to Disney World February 6th or the 5th. And we are really excited to go because it will be both of our first times doing Tiana's Bayou Adventure, and we are both excited to do all the other rides, and we're going with another friend that lives there. I hope you have an amazing day. Bye.
Hi, everyone. It's Elizabeth from Massachusetts. Just finished listening to the most recent episode with some listener emails with Becky. And I can't agree more that I actually think, the biggest fans of us, when it comes to Disney, the way you travel there goes through ebbs and flows and transitions. And I really feel as if that's a piece of discovering more of the magic within getting to stay at a place like Walt Disney World. I can't tell you the amount of times people are like, oh my God, you're in your 30s. Why are you still going to Disney World? And I'm like, I could have the same type of vacation actually somewhere else, but I really enjoy that I know the place, it's familiar, I know I'm safe and all of those things. But I can sit at a pool now for a day or two and read a book and go to the spa, where I could also do that, in a lot of different places around the world, and or just at a staycation here at home. But the way that you travel there changes over time, and there are stuff also trips where it's hey, let's do some rides. We haven't done this ride in forever. And that's revisiting those pieces is also a huge piece of what makes Disney so special. So it has it all. If you're someone listening, you're like, should we travel? Yes, you'll probably get hooked and want to go back. And there's something for everyone. So thanks again, Lou and Becky, for an awesome episode. Congrats to everyone who finished the marathon. I've called back since the marathon. Oh my God. Yeah, I ran my first marathon. It was great, but really hard. But congrats to everyone who ran, and can't wait for Christmas weekend. Talk to everyone soon. Bye.